The National Lacrosse League season is finally starting, after the first 2 weeks had to be cancelled because the League and Players Association couldn't come to a new agreement before. But I'm just happy we will still be having a season, so each team will still be playing a full 18-game schedule after they fixed it all up. And this is a much anticipated season as there are 2 expansion teams making 11 teams total. So first, let's check out the 2 new teams. Philadelphia has gotten their Wings back after their team moved to New England to become the Black Wolves in 2014. So the new Wings are the 6th team in the East Division and will play under Coach Paul Day. He has 21 years of experience behind the bench. In fact, he was the NLL Coach of the Year back in 2003. And for the team that he has put together, young rookie goalie Doug Buchan signed a 3-year agreement. He was a former 2nd-round pick in 2015. 36-year-old goaltender Chris Collins signed a 1-year agreement. Goalie David DeRuccio was selected in the 9th round, 17th overall in the expansion draft from Buffalo, where he played 4 seasons. 2016 was his best, going 5-3 with a .782 save percentage. Young rookie defenseman Steph Charbonneau signed to a 2-year deal. Young defenseman Isaiah Davis-Allen signed to a 1-year deal. They signed veteran defenseman Dylan Evans to a 1-year deal as well. He split last season with New England and Rochester, recording a total of 8 points. Defenseman Tim Henderson agreed to a 1-year agreement. Young defenseman Braden Hill signed a 2-year deal, coming over from Georgia. Veteran defenseman Shea Konechny is back in the NLL on a 1-year deal. The last time he played was in 2014 for Colorado. Signed defenseman Paxton LaRue and rookie defenseman Joakim Miller to 1-year contracts. Young defenseman Liam Patton signed a 2-year deal coming over from Buffalo. Defenseman Zach Reed was traded from Buffalo for forward Vaughn Harris after Harris was selected in the expansion draft in the 8th round, 15th overall. Defenseman Derek Searley signed for a year. And young defenseman Cal Stavely was a 3rd round selection in the entry draft. Transition Frank Brown was selected in the 5th round, 9th overall in the expansion draft from Rochester. Signed transition Liam Bierns to a 1-year deal. Rookie transition Adam Osika agreed to a 3-year deal. Young forward Trevor Baptiste was a 2nd round, 14th overall pick out of the entry draft. Signed forward Martin Boas on a 3-year deal. Young forward Chris Cloutier was a 2nd overall pick in this year's draft. Forward Josh Courier was selected in the 4th round, 7th overall in the expansion draft from Rochester, where he played 2 seasons since being drafted and averaged 33 points. Young forward Justin Gooderding was a 3rd round selection in the entry draft. Veteran forward Jordan Hall was selected in the 3rd round, 5th overall in the expansion draft from Georgia, where he played 2 seasons and averaged 56 points. Forward Brett Hickey was selected 1st overall in the expansion draft from Toronto, where he played 4 seasons averaging 56.5 points and had a 50-goal season. Young forward Anthony Joakim was selected in the 6th round, 11th overall in the expansion draft from New England. Forward Kiel Matiz was a 2nd round, 3rd overall selection in the expansion draft from Georgia, where he played 3 seasons averaging 66 points. Young rookie forward Matt Ramble was selected in the 7th round, 13th overall in the expansion draft from New England. And forward Blaze Reardon agreed to a 2-year deal. For our 2nd expansion team, the San Diego Seals are the 5th team in the West Division. They will play under coach Patrick Merrill, who retired from playing just 1 year ago. He was a really good player, and I witnessed it here with the Toronto Rock for 12 seasons in 2 stints. Won 3 NLL titles in his career. And for the team that he will be managing, young goalie Rylan Hartley was the 2nd round, 15th overall pick in this year's entry draft. Goalie Frank Sciliano was selected in the 6th round, 12th overall in the expansion draft from Calgary, where he played all his 7 years for since being drafted. He had an 8-win season in 2017. Young defenseman Drew Belgrave signed to a 1-year deal coming over from Toronto. Young defenseman Travis Burton was a 2nd round, 21st overall pick in the entry draft. Signed young defenseman Brandon Cleland coming over from Vancouver, coming off his best season scoring 9 goals and 11 assists for 20 points. Young rookie defenseman Garrett Epple signed a 2-year contract. Defenseman Cameron Holding was selected in the 4th round, 8th overall in the expansion draft from Colorado, where he played 6 seasons averaging 14 points. Defenseman Quinn McKay signed a 1-year deal coming over from Colorado. Defenseman Garrett McIntosh was selected in the 7th round, 14th overall in the expansion draft from Calgary, where he played all his 5 seasons since being drafted, coming off his best, recording 12 points. Defenseman Tor Reinhold signed a 1-year contract coming over from Saskatchewan. Young defenseman Ethan Scott was traded with the 2nd round, 17th overall pick in the entry draft, young transition Graydon Bradley, from Buffalo for young defenseman Bryce Sweeting, who was initially picked in the 5th round, 10th overall in the expansion draft from Colorado. Defenseman Adrian Sorichetti was selected in the 3rd round, 6th overall in the expansion draft from Saskatchewan. He played 5 seasons for the franchise since being drafted, coming off his best with a 15-point season. Coach Patrick Merrill's brother, Brody, has decided to join him. The 37-year-old transition signed a 2-year contract, coming over after 4 seasons with Toronto, also serving as captain for us. Transition Nick Oslo signed a 1-year deal. Transition Mikey Schlosser signed a 2-year deal. Veteran forward Cal Buchanan was traded with the 3rd round, 33rd overall pick of the draft, young forward Connor Kelly. From New England for the 2nd round, 26th overall pick, young defenseman Jackson Nishimura, and a 2021 3rd round pick. Buchanan played 4 seasons in New England, averaging 60 points. 37-year-old forward Dan Dawson signed a 1-year contract coming over from Saskatchewan. Forward Turner Evans was a 2nd overall selection in the expansion draft from Toronto. Played 2 seasons with us since being drafted, averaged 36 points. Young forward Jules Henningberg was a 3rd-round pick out of the entry draft. Forward Casey Jackson was selected in the 8th round, 16th overall in the expansion draft from Vancouver. Young forward Connor Kiernan was the 11th overall pick in the entry draft. Signed young rookie forwards Zach Miller and Johnny Pearson to 2-year agreements. Pearson was a 2nd round, 19th overall pick in 2017. And young forward Austin Stats was a number 1 pick in the 2018 entry draft. So back to the East, we have the Buffalo Bandits, who will have co-head coaches this year. Both are very well known in Bandits history with very decorated careers. The 2 Hall of Famers helped bring the 4 championships to Buffalo, hoping to continue their legacy. The former captains are lifelong Bandits, becoming assistant coaches after retiring and now in charge together behind the bench. So for the new pieces to their team, 36-year-old goaltender Matt Vince has signed a 3-year contract coming over from Rochester, where he was a starter for 8 seasons. His best was in 2014, going 12-3 with a .798 save percentage. Veteran defenseman John Harnett signed a 1-year deal. Young defenseman Matt Gilray was the 3rd overall pick in the entry draft. Defenseman Matt Spanger was traded from New England for young defenseman Ryan Fournier. Young defenseman Bryce Sweeting was initially selected in the 5th round, 10th overall by the San Diego Seals from Colorado, then traded to Buffalo for young defenseman Ethan Scott, and the 2nd round, 17th overall pick of the entry draft, young transition Graydon Bradley. Young transition Ian McKay was the 4th overall pick in the entry draft. Transition Ethan O'Connor was traded from Georgia for a 4th round pick in 2019 and a 3rd round pick in 2021. Young forward Dallas Bridle and Dylan Malloy signed 1-year deals. Veteran forward Corey Small was traded from Vancouver with a conditional 2020 and 2022 2nd round picks. For forward Mitch Jones and conditional 2020 and 2022 2nd round picks as well. Small, in 4 seasons with Vancouver, played his best in 2017 with 46 goals, 65 assists for 111 points. For the notable players gone, goalie Alex Bouquet was traded to the New England Black Wolves for a 1st round pick in 2021. He was their starter for a season, going 6-6 with a .771 save percentage. Goalie David DeRuccio was selected in the 9th round, 17th overall pick in the expansion draft by the Philadelphia Wings. He played 4 seasons in Buffalo. 2016 was his best, going 5-3 with a .782 save percentage. Defenseman Zach Reed was traded to the Philadelphia Wings for forward Vaughn Harris after Philly selected Harris in the 8th round, 15th overall pick in the expansion draft. Reed only missed 1 game last season, scoring a goal and 14 assists for 5 points. Forward Craig England is now a free agent. He spent 3 seasons in Buffalo, scored 17 goals, 7 assists for 24 points in only 14 games played in 2017. And their top goal scorer last season with 38 goals, forward Mitch Jones was traded in the Corey Small deal. Jones played 5 seasons for Buffalo. He also had 43 assists and 81 points total for his best. So several changes for Buffalo. And for the Georgia Swarm, 19-year-old goalie Steve Orleman was a 2nd round, 19th overall pick in this year's entry draft. They signed goalie Craig Wendy on a 2-year agreement. Rookie defenseman Matt Dunn and defenseman Tyler Ferreira signed to 2 years as well. Young defenseman Adam Weideman was the 8th overall selection in the entry draft. Young transition John Sexton was a 4th round pick of the draft. Young forward Holden Katoni was traded with the 7th overall pick of the entry draft, young forward Brendan Bombery. From Calgary for forward Jesse King and the 23rd overall pick of the draft, young transition Adam Dixon. Katoni was one of Calgary's main scorers last year with 36 goals, 40 assists for 76 points. Young forwards Leroy Halftown and Joel Tinney were 2nd round, 18th, and 20th overall picks respectively in the draft. And the notable outs for Georgia. Veteran forward Jordan Hall was selected in the 3rd round, 5th overall pick in the expansion draft by the Philadelphia Wings. Had an 80-point season in 2017 with 20 goals and 60 assists. Forward Jesse King was sent to the Calgary Roughnecks as part of the Holden Katoni trade. King was one of their top scorers, had 22 goals, 55 assists for 77 points in 2016. Forward Keoma Tiz was selected in the 2nd round, 3rd overall in the expansion draft by the Philadelphia Wings. He averaged 66 points in 3 seasons with the Swarm. So a bunch of new pieces for Georgia. And next we have the New England Black Wolves. Goalie Alex Bouquet signed a 2-year deal coming over from Buffalo. Young goalie Ethan Woodnow were 3rd round picks in this year's entry draft. Veteran defenseman Greg Downing signed a 1-year deal coming over from Colorado. Young defenseman Ryan Fournier was traded from Buffalo for defenseman Matt Spanger. Young defenseman Jackson Nishimura was a 2nd round, 26th overall entry draft pick. Defenseman Andrew Suter was traded from Vancouver for the 3rd round, 32nd overall pick young transition Jean-Luc Chetney and a 2021 3rd round pick. Suter was Vancouver's top defenseman last season with 9 goals, 10 assists for 19 points in 16 games played. Forward Tyler Digby was traded with a 2019 4th round pick from Calgary for 2019 2nd and 3rd round picks. He averaged 46 points in 3 seasons with the Roughnecks. Young forward Derek Downs was a 5th round pick in the entry draft. Forward Dave Imala signed for a year. And young forward Seth Oakes is back on a 1-year deal. And their key pieces gone? Veteran goalie Aaron Bold was their starter for a season, getting 9 wins and 8 losses with a .775 save percentage. He has now signed with Vancouver. Veteran forward Kyle Buchanan was traded to the San Diego Seals. He played 4 seasons in New England, averaging 60 points. Forward Johnny Pallas was traded to Calgary for a 2019 second-round pick and a fourth-round pick in 2020. Then got flipped over to Toronto immediately for forward Dan Taylor. Pallas was a mid-season addition for New England. In 10 games played, he got 8 goals and 9 assists for 17 points. So a lot of new additions for New England. Next are the 2018 East Division champions, the Rochester Nighthawks. They got young goalies Charles Claxton and Nick DeMude to 2-year deals. Goalie Warren Hill agreed to a 1-year deal coming from Georgia. Young defenseman James Barkley was selected 9th overall in the 2018 entry draft. Young defenseman Dylan Riley was a 5th-round selection in the draft. Young defenseman Darryl Robertson signed a 1-year contract coming over from Toronto. Young defenseman Luke Van Scheppen was a 2nd-round 16th overall draft pick. Young transition player Oren Horn was picked in the 3rd round of the draft. Forward Mike Burke has signed for 2 years. Young forward Cam Milligan signed a 1-year deal. Young forward Leland Pallas was a 6th-round draft choice. Young forward Brandon Robinson got a 2-year contract. And forward Pat Saunders has signed for a year. He was very productive last season for Buffalo and Vancouver. Scored 14 goals, 18 assists for 32 points in only 14 games played. And their notable players gone? 36-year-old goaltender Matt Vince has signed with Buffalo. Was a Nighthawk starting goalie for 8 seasons. 2014 was his best, going 12-3 with a .798 save percentage. Forward Josh Courier was selected in the 4th round, 7th overall in the expansion draft by the Philadelphia Wings. Had 18 goals and 17 assists for 35 points in only 12 games played in 2017. So quite a few upgrades for the Eastern Division champs to try and go all the way this season. And now we have my Toronto Rock. Young defenseman Mitch Gustafson was a 6th-round selection in this year's entry draft. Young defenseman Josh Jubenville signed a 1-year agreement. Young defenseman AJ Cluck was a 4th-round draft selection. Young defenseman Brad Lyons was a 2nd-round 24th overall draft pick. Veteran defenseman Creighton Reed signed a 1-year contract coming over from Calgary. Young rookie defenseman Alec Toulette has signed a 1-year deal. Young transition Scott Dominey was a 5th-round pick in the draft. And forward Johnny Pallas was originally traded to Calgary for a 2019 2nd-round pick and a 2020 4th-round pick. From New England, then immediately flipped to Toronto for forward Dan Taylor. For our notable players gone, 39-year-old goalie Brandon Miller has retired after an 18-year career. Played 4 of them for Toronto. His first in 2015 was his best, going 8-2 with a .792 save percentage. 37-year-old defenseman Sandy Chapman has retired. The alternate captain played 13 seasons with the Rock in 2 stints. 2004 was his best with 5 goals and 7 assists for 12 points. Transition Jesse Gamble is now out of contract. Played all his 6-year career in Toronto. 2016 was his best with 7 goals and 12 assists for 19 points. Our captain, 37-year-old transition Brody Merrill, has opted to sign with the San Diego Seals to join his brother and former Rock player as well, who is now the head coach of that team, Patrick Merrill. Brody was with Toronto for 4 seasons. His best was in 2015, where he scored 8 goals and 24 assists for 32 points. Forward Turner Evans was selected 2nd overall in the expansion draft by the San Diego Seals. He was drafted and played 2 very good seasons with the Rock, averaging 36 points. And forward Brett Hickey was the 1st overall pick in the expansion draft by the Philadelphia Wings. He was one of our top goal scorers in his 4 years here. He was a 50-goal scorer in 2015 for his best, also assisted 31, totaling 81 points. So we lost a ton of key pieces, especially in the expansion draft's top 2 picks, and also to free agency as well. So we move over to the West, starting with the Calgary Roughnecks. Young defenseman Eli Salama was the 12th overall pick in this year's entry draft. Young defenseman Shane Simpson was the 6th overall draft pick. Young transition Reese Collies was picked 13th overall in the entry draft. Signed young forward Chris Boucher. Young forward Carter Dixon was a 4th-round pick in the draft. Veteran forward Rice Duke has signed a 1-year agreement coming from Vancouver. Was one of their top goal scorers and had 5 90-plus point seasons. Forward Jesse King was acquired in a trade with the 2nd-round 23rd overall pick in the entry draft, young transition Adam Dixon from Georgia. For young forward Holden Catoni and the 7th overall pick in the draft, young forward Brendan Bombery. King was one of their top scorers, averaging 73 points in 2 seasons. Forward Dan Taylor was traded from Toronto for forward Johnny Pallas, who was initially acquired in a trade with New England for a 2019 2nd-round pick and a 2020 4th-round pick. And their notables gone are: goalie Frank Sciliano was selected in the 6th round, 12th overall in the expansion draft by the San Diego Seals. Played all his 7 seasons in Calgary since being drafted in 2011. 2017 was his best, going 8-6 with a .773 save percentage as their starting goaltender. Defenseman Garrett McIntosh was selected in the 7th round, 14th overall in the expansion draft by the San Diego Seals. Played all his 5 seasons in Calgary since being drafted. Played his best one last year with 6 goals and 6 assists for 12 points. Young forward Holden Katoni was sent to Georgia as part of the Jesse King deal. Played all his 2 seasons in Calgary since being drafted. Was one of their main scorers last year with 36 goals and 40 assists for 76 points. And forward Tyler Digby was traded with the 2019 4th round pick to New England for 2019 2nd and 3rd round picks. Spent 3 seasons in Calgary, averaging 46 points. So not too many moves for the Roughnecks. And for the Colorado Mammoth, young defenseman Jeremy Bosher agreed to a 2-year deal. Young defenseman Julian Garetano was a 3rd round pick in the 2018 draft. Young defenseman Dylan Laprade was a 4th round draft pick. Young defenseman Stephen Lee was picked in the 6th round. Veteran defenseman John Lynn signed a 1-year deal coming over from Vancouver. Young defenseman Adam Perroni signed a 1-year deal as well, coming from Rochester. Defenseman Mike Triolo signed a 1-year deal too, and young defenseman Jeff Wittig signed a 2-year contract. Young forward Denon Armstrong was a 3rd round draft pick. Young forward Dean Farrell signed for a year. Young forward Kyle Killen was a 2nd round 22nd overall pick in the draft. And the notable players gone, defenseman Cameron Holding was selected in the 4th round 8th overall in the expansion draft by the San Diego Seals. He played 6 seasons in Colorado. 2014 was his best, scoring 7 goals and 16 assists for 23 points. Veteran forward Zach Greer has retired, played a 9-year career, 2 of them in Colorado, and averaged 45 points with them. So a ton of changes for Colorado. And for the 2018 NLL champions Saskatchewan Rush, young defenseman Tyler Galton was a 6th round pick in the 2018 entry draft. Young defenseman Ryan McLean was a 3rd round draft pick. Transition Travis Cornwall was picked up in a trade with Vancouver for a 2020 2nd round pick. Young rookie transition Jordy Jones-Smith signed a 1-year deal. Young transition Dalton Lupo was a 5th round draft selection. Rookie transition Mason Pinn signed for a year. Young forward Zach Gold was a 6th round and the final pick of the entry draft. And young forward Connor Robinson was a 5th overall pick in the draft. And for their key player gone is their transition player Adrian Sorochetti. He was selected in the 3rd round 6th overall by the San Diego Seals in the expansion draft. He was coming off his best year of 3 in Saskatchewan, recording 15 points with 7 goals and 8 assists. So of course the defending champs only needing a couple of tweaks. Next up, Vancouver's lacrosse team has rebranded from the Stealth after being sold to the Canucks Sports and Entertainment Group, and are now known as the Vancouver Warriors. They've also moved from the Langley Events Center and will make Rogers Arena their new home. Not only that, they've hired a new coach and pretty much changed their entire team too. So it is now Coach Chris Gill in charge. He is a Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Famer and a former assistant coach for the Colorado Mammoth for the past 4 seasons. As a player, he has won 3 championships. And now for the new-looking team he will be coaching, they got veteran goalie Aaron Bold has signed for a year coming over from New England. Young defenseman Travis Burton was a 2nd round 21st overall pick in this year's entry draft. Veteran defenseman Tyler Cadron and defenseman Colton Porter are back in the NLL signing 1-year deals. The last time they played was in 2015 for Colorado. Rookie defenseman Zach Porter signed a 1-year contract. Signed veteran defenseman Cliff Smith back. Young rookie defenseman Tony Tremblay signed a 1-year deal. Young defenseman Dallas Wade was a 4th round draft selection, and young defenseman Nate Wade was a 3rd round pick. Rookie forward Owen Baker and forward Keegan Ball both signed for a year. Young forward Jean-Luc Chetney was a 3rd round draft pick. Forward Brody Eastwood signed a 2-year contract coming from Colorado. Signed young forward Andrew Gallant to a 1-year deal. Forward Mitch Jones was traded with a conditional 2020 and 2022 2nd round draft picks. From Buffalo for veteran forward Corey Small and conditional 2020 and 2022 2nd round draft picks as well. Jones, coming off his best season, was the Bandits' top goal scorer with 38 goals, 43 assists for 81 points. Forward Dan Lomas signed a 2-year deal coming from Rochester, and veteran forward Jordan McBride is back in the NLL on a 1-year agreement. He last saw action on the floor in 2014 with Colorado. And their notable players gone. Defenseman Tyler Garrison is now a free agent, was part of the Stealth organization for all 5 years of his career since being drafted dating back to the days in Washington. 2014 was his best season, scoring 9 goals and 11 assists for 20 points. Defenseman Andrew Suter was traded to New England, playing only 1 season in Vancouver, but was their top defenseman with 9 goals and 10 assists for 19 points in 16 games played. And one of their top goal scorers, veteran forward Rice Duke, has signed with Calgary. Played 9 seasons in the Stealth organization. 2016 was his best with 48 goals and 63 assists for 111 points. Forward Casey Jackson contributed big in only 4 games played in his rookie season with 6 goals, 4 assists for 10 points. So the San Diego Seals selected him in the 8th round, 16th overall in the expansion draft. Forward Pat Saunders signed with Rochester. He was part of a mid-season trade from Buffalo. So in 10 games played, scored 11 goals, 14 assists for 25 points in Vancouver. And their top goal scorer last season, veteran forward Corey Small, was traded to Buffalo in the Mitch Jones trade. Small played 4 seasons in Vancouver. 2017 was his best with 46 goals, 65 assists for 111 points. Man, so excited for this NLL season with the additions of Philadelphia and San Diego. And finally, we can say, let the season begin. So thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I hope you'll tune in to the next episode.